Hello everyone, and welcome to this edition of the Air and Outdoors Big Buck Profile, brought to you by Lake Country Outdoors. I'm joined today on this Big Buck Profile with Chris Robinson and Jacob Murphy, and we're sitting between 350 inches of antler harvested here in Russell County, Kentucky last year, the 2016 deer season. Guys, we appreciate you coming on the Big Buck Profile today, and thanks for being here and sharing these deer.
Thank you.
Thank y'all for having us.
No problem. We're looking forward to getting a little bit more of this backstory on these two deer. Just two Kentucky giants that were harvested last year. So you guys stay tuned. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back to jump into these stories. Welcome back to the Air and Outdoors Big Buck Profile, and we're sitting here with Jacob Murphy and Chris Robinson showcasing their monster bucks harvested last year in the 2016 deer season. So we'll start with you, Jacob. First question, how much exactly did this deer score here that we're looking at?
186 and 5/8.
186 and 5/8. So just a giant booner, and if I'm not wrong, this was the number one typical scoring buck in Kentucky last year?
Yep.
Yes, it was. Gosh. Just an absolute, you just take a look at this deer, the mass is incredible. Mainframe 12-pointer, great mass going all the way out on his main beams. Just great time length all throughout the deer. Just a crazy buck to harvest. So Jacob and even you, Chris, both of you can chime in here. Did you all have any history with this deer, any encounters or trail camera pictures or anything at all?
Yeah, I watched him for 3 years, but I only shot him once. They're muzzleloading, and I missed him. So other than that, I've never seen him.
So you had seen this deer the previous year and took a shot at him with the muzzleloader, and unfortunately missed. Was this early season or late in the year?
It was early.
Early in the year, so back in October of 2015, you took a shot at the deer, and you got lucky enough to see him again. That's pretty incredible. Chris, did you have any history with this deer? Have any pictures of him? Or?
Both of us had trail pics of him. Jacob obviously had a lot more than I did, especially later. I think I had pictures of him when he was around that 3.5-year-old range, and I only had a few, and I knew the deer had potential. And then I didn't see him anymore until Jacob got to showing me pictures on his trail camera. But he had tons of pictures.
The deer's home range was basically right there in the center of Jacob's farm.
Jacob was right in it.
That's pretty crazy. So, Jacob, these trail camera pictures that you had of this deer, were they mainly nighttime? Was this a nocturnal deer? Did you have any daytime of him?
It was pretty much all nighttime, but one picture, and that's the picture after I went to LBL and come back, and he walked through at 12 o'clock, and that's it.
Middle of the day.
Yep.
You just never know when those deer are going to, those big bucks are going to actually, make an appearance during daylight time. What day was it when that deer came through in daylight?
That, I don't really know
Don't
for
know.
sure.
Was it November?
Yeah.
Right in November. So right there, these bucks are starting to rut, and, they start making those mistakes, start getting out in daytime, looking for the first available does early in November. So, that deer made a mistake and walked by Jacob's stand. Do either of you all have an idea on Jacob's deer's age?
No, I really didn't have I didn't have him nailed down as far as age. Jacob kept asking me, what am I going to have to do to kill this deer? What am I going to have to do? The deer's he's too big. He's just going to have to make a mistake on his own.
Yeah.
And I said, it's more likely going to be during the rut, and he's more likely going to be after a doe, or you ain't going to see him.
Yeah.
And
that's what happened.
That's exactly the way it played out.
That's pretty crazy. That's pretty crazy. So, Jacob, I know that this was definitely a hunt of a lifetime for you. Can you give us a little play-by-play of what happened that morning using the stand when this deer came in? Just talk to us a little bit about that hunt that morning.
That morning, about in day lot, I had 2 does come in, come out of the bean field, and they was spooked, and they kept looking, you know, and eventually a smaller buck come up running them off, and the buck looked back, the smaller buck, and it was a coyote, and I shot it.
You shot it, so you shot a coyote that same morning?
Shot a coyote the same morning.
That's
and 10 minutes later, I, heard some stuff down the holler, and I looked down the holler and I seen 2 does, and they was running, and off the far side of the holler, I seen the big buck behind them. I thought, oh, here we go. And
so your second opportunity at this deer, you had him once as in 2015 as a year younger, and then here he comes again. Did you look at the horns any, or was you just trying to focus on the body of the deer,
I
make
knew
a clean
exactly what it was when I seen the horns, so I focused on the body and just calmed myself down. And I was pretty calm until I pulled that trigger.
So you didn't have any buck fever or anything, as they call it, whenever you seen the deer?
I didn't.
You didn't get the shakes or nothing?
Didn't get the shakes.
That's pretty crazy. Oh, me. So, with this deer, after you make the shot, you squeeze the trigger. What's the deer do? Does he drop? Does he run?
He drops straight in his tracks.
Drops straight in his tracks. So, as a hunter, you've been hunting this deer for, a couple years.
Yeah.
Been watching him on your pictures. You had a chance at him. Did you realize that you had just harvested the #1 typical scoring deer in the state of Kentucky?
No, I didn't really realize how big it was. Even on camera, and then even when I got up to it, I didn't realize how big it was. But it's definitely a monster. But I just didn't realize that. I didn't think it was the biggest in the state.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, out of all the deer, the people harvest. I mean, it's pretty rare that you're that one person that's going to harvest the largest deer in the state of Kentucky. So after you shot this deer and he drops in his tracks, what do you do? Do you call somebody? What's the first thing you do after you see this deer?
Before I even got out of that stand, I FaceTimed Chris, and I told him, I said, I shot that 12, and I even talked to him going down the ladder. I wasn't going to get off there. I said, you guys stay out here and look at this.
So are you hunting at this time?
I'm in the stand as well, and I feel my phone vibrate, and I look, and he likes to FaceTime, and I can't stand it. But I realized it's him trying to get hold of me on FaceTime, and I thought, well, day's open the day gun season, I can't afford not to, to answer it.
Yeah. I
answered it, and sure enough, he said, Chris, I've killed that 12-pointer. I said, Jacob, don't you lie to me. And he said, I'm not lying. And of course, his phone was going everywhere, and then he finally gets to the deer, and he shows me the deer, and I knew immediately he wasn't lying. So, I mean, it's just unreal.
Yeah, so whenever you get down, you go up to that deer, what was the feeling like when you put your hand around his horns and you couldn't even fit your whole hand around the horns because it was such a big deer?
It was crazy, and it took 4 or 5 of us to get him out of that holler.
Yeah.
And
just a brute.
By the time we got him out of the holler, it's crazy. By the time we got him back to the barn, there's tons of people there.
Already tons of people there wanting to see this.
Yeah.
This booner that you just harvested. That's pretty crazy. So, I know you harvested this buck, and you kind of touched on it a little bit. The community here in Russell County, love to deer hunt. Got a lot of deer hunters here. A lot of beautiful country to hunt on, and there's a lot of people deer hunting's popular. So everybody wants to see this deer. Everybody wants to see this 180 plus inch deer that's just been harvested right here in Russell County. Can you explain a little bit about the day? What happened after you'd harvested him, once you brought him back into town or anything?
Brought him straight to BP.
Get him scored?
Yeah, get him scored, and it's unreal on how many people stopped in and how long I was there, talking to everyone.
Yeah, I'm sure you got a lot of questions.
Oh, yeah.
Where were you hunting at?
Yeah.
I'm sure that was a big question.
Yeah.
So, and like you said, you just took him up there to Lake Country Outdoors, or one of our fine sponsors, and sponsoring this big buck profile. And they're actually going to be having their big buck contest here this year. The one that Jacob won last year, because I don't think anybody topped out him last year. So be sure to go down there to Lake Country Outdoors on 127 in Midtown and enter their big buck contest. But we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to be taking a look at Chris Robinson's Booner right here behind me, just a great deer. So you guys stay tuned for the Aaron Outdoors Big Buck Profile. Welcome back to the Aaron Outdoors Big Buck Profile, brought to you by Lake Country Outdoors. Now we're going to take a look at Chris Robinson's 168-inch buck that he harvested last year in deer season here in Kentucky. Chris, we'll start here. We talked about it a little bit earlier. Had you ever seen this deer at all on any cameras, in person at all?
No, I hadn't. I had no trail cam pictures of him. I hadn't. No, I really had no idea that deer was even anywhere around, really.
Yeah, and Jacob had actually harvested the buck we had talked about earlier 1 week before you had seen this deer on your farm, right?
Right. I got this deer the second Saturday of our rifle season. Jacob, of course, got his the first Saturday. He and I hunted that. Well, he really hunted that deer during bow season, and I felt like I was in a spot where I possibly might get a shot at him too. But when he killed him, it kind of, I was tickled to death.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong, but kind of let a little bit of air out of me, and I kind of switched spots.
Yeah.
And actually got in on a place on this deer that I didn't really think.
Yeah,
I mean, the place had potential because I'd hunted it previously, but I had no idea anything like that.
Yeah, going into your hunt after he harvests, a 180-inch deer,
Right.
You're not really thinking that you're going to see a Boone and Crocket
No.
deer going into this hunt. You're just going in hunting to, see what,
Right.
this farm's got potential.
Yeah, I'm going in to hunt just, to go ahead and hunt and try to fill your tags, yeah, but this particular morning, I had a job to bid at 10 o'clock that morning, and I knew my hunt was going to be cut short, so I went in and hunted a little while, and actually on my way out, walking back to my vehicle, I had to walk right down beside this thicket, and I got about halfway lengthwise of the thicket. I got about halfway to the vehicle, and I jumped a couple of does out of the middle of the thicket, and they kind of startled me a minute, but I seen it was 2 does. I let them go on. I made about 2 more steps, and this joker come up. I mean, he was bedded with them,
Yeah.
and he came up, and immediately, the red light, the green light went on.
Yeah. You knew that was definitely a shooter. I mean, I
Yeah.
can imagine you see the frame on that deer when he stands up and turns. Did he turn and look at you or anything?
No, he come up. He was kind of like, when he came up, he immediately went on what I would call a lope.
Yeah.
Because it was a thicket, but
Yeah.
he was loping through that thicket, and he was kind of going broadside, quartering away from me, and he got so far, and then he was dead away, and I was looking at his back end and the back side of his rack, which everybody knows the back side. When you see the back side, you can see the width. And,
Yeah.
and I immediately knew it was a shooter, but I was watching it slip out of my fingers.
Yeah.
Not being able to get on him, but.
Finally, he presents you with a good enough shot that you feel comfortable enough, taking. You knew you pretty much had one opportunity at harvesting this deer, and so you took a shot, right?
It was one shot or it was nothing.
Yeah.
And
So
I took it, and luckily the bullet
found its mark.
Yeah.
So to go in on this deer a little bit more, I mean, after you shoot this deer, do you realize how big the deer is? Do you know that this is a Boone and Crocket deer that you're about to go and put your hands on?
Not being able to study the deer on trail camera.
Yeah. So you hadn't had any history.
I didn't know. I had no idea. I knew immediately when he come up in the thicket it was a shooter. But being able to see this deer on trail camera as much as Jacob and I had,
Yeah.
I mean, mainly coming from his pictures, but he was sharing pictures with me, and I mean, I knew. I mean, I'd had
The frame of
I had
it.
hours to look at that deer.
Yeah.
And this one, I had seconds.
Yeah.
I knew it was a good deer, but I knew it wasn't going to rival that. But I knew it was a shooter for me and for this area, and I wouldn't. If I had the shot, I was going to take it.
Yeah. So you shoot this deer, and how far does he go? Does he go very far?
He actually, when he was going up a ridge point, and I was down in the bottom, and he had cleared the bottom on me and headed up a ridge, and he dropped immediately, pretty much. But the shot was all I had to shoot at was his rear quarters, and basically possibility of maybe hitting him in the back of the neck. And he was going to enter. I picked a spot out ahead of him. He slowed to a walk when he got almost to the top of this ridge, and he slowed down to a walk. And I picked a spot out kind of in front of him that I seen I had an opening that he was going to walk into.
Yeah.
And I thought, just as soon as I see brown hair step in that opening, I went ahead and placed my scope, my crosshairs in that opening. I thought as soon as he feels my scope, I'm pulling the trigger.
So obviously you made a pretty good shot on him, and the deer falls, and you know, you go and recover him.
Right.
And you know, explain a little bit of the emotions, or I guess, how happy were you to finally get your hands around this kind of caliber of deer, especially after knowing your friend had killed a 180-inch deer the week before, that you both got to share an amazing season like that together.
Right. Well, the closer I got to, I could tell obviously he's a good deer, but the closer I got to him, I thought, man, there ain't no ground shrinkage going on here.
Yeah.
It started setting in on me, and I thought, I kind of tried to picture Jacob's deer.
You wanted him to be just a tad bit bigger. I know you did deep down.
He wasn't shrinking by no means, but he wasn't really growing to that either. But I thought, man, this is a good deer. And I think I called Jacob, and I told him, I said, Jacob, I just shot a good deer, but I said, I don't think he's the caliber of your deer, but I said, he's a good one.
Yeah.
And he came over in a matter of minutes. And he agreed. He said he's a good deer.
I said that he was, he didn't really think he knew what he got either. And I told him, I said, it's 170.
I had a good idea.
Yeah.
I said, it's close. I said, it might not look like mine, but, I know it's...
I was guessing him in that even 160, 165 range.
So did you have to help him pull your deer out? Jacob, did you have to pull him?
We both helped each other, yeah.
Okay, I was going to say, you didn't get off easy because he helped you. All right. Well, guys, that's going to wrap it up for the Big Buck Profile. So once again, Jacob, Chris, thank you guys so much for sharing your stories with us. And good luck to you this season. I know it's going to be hard to top 2016, but you never know what could be out in the woods stirring around here in Kentucky, in Russell County. Once again, we'd like to thank our sponsor, Lake Country Outdoors in Midtown on 127. Go in there, stop in, and sign up for the Big Buck Contest. And next year, you could be sitting in these guys' shoes talking about your harvest from 2017 season. So, guys, once again, thanks. And thanks for watching the Big Buck Profile here on Aaron Outdoors. We'll see you next time.